It's back to school at Las Encinas for the remaining gang and a few new members. Isadora's club opens, and Patrick and Yvonne face their first tests. Hello, entertainment enthusiasts. This is Ray, and this is the Fandom Realm. And today I'm going to start reviewing a new series to the channel, and that is Elite. This is a Netflix series from Spain, so you can watch it dubbed or with subtitles. The dubbing isn't great, so I would go with the subtitles. Please do pay attention to the rating, as it is mature. It has plenty of language, sexual situations, and nudity. While this has nothing to do with the ratings, please be aware that there are very front and center LGBQT storylines in this series. Now, if you're new to the show, the premise of the show originally was that 3 lower income students get to attend a super prestigious boarding school in Spain that all the rich and famous kids go to. The first 3 seasons were excellent, but over the last 2 seasons, most of that original cast has left and none of them remain for this season. The first 3 seasons were the best. If you aren't sure what type of show this is, then I want you to imagine putting together an American soap opera which shows all the sex and nudity that you missed, a YA novel leaning heavily on the A, and a death every season. Put all that together and you come out with Elite. And once you start watching, it's hard to stop. So now let's review Season 6, Episode 1 of Elite. So this season's cold open is following Yvonne as he's walking down the street. He hails a car, but the car speeds up to him and hits Yvonne, throwing him into the windshield, breaking the windshield, and throwing him up over the car and to the ground. The car drives off and stops. The cold open ends, and we're going to flash to the current episode, and we get a scene at the jail between Ari and her father, and he's going to threaten to cut them off financially if they don't return to school. He is fighting because he was accused of some financial irregularities. He was also originally arrested for the issues with Samuel. In case you don't know, Samuel was the main character in the first 3 seasons. He was one of those poorer kids that was going to Las Encinas, but in the last episode, they actually left it off, and I think everybody thought he was alive, but he fell and hit his head on the pool, fell into the pool. He's eventually going to get out, and all that was caused by Ari's dad. Well, the way I thought we were left off was that he was still alive, but apparently with this new season, he actually died because of his injuries. They don't really go into that a lot. I really thought they would have said more about it. Moving on to the school, it appears to be the first day of classes, and Ari, Patrick, and Mencia arrive at the school. Patrick immediately finds Yvonne, and they talk. Yvonne calls Patrick his boyfriend, which surprises Patrick because they hadn't really labeled their relationship yet. They kiss and walk into school together. Seeing some of their social media posts, the two aren't exactly hiding anything. We are then introduced to a new character, Sarah, who is on social media and offends Mencia. They have some words, and they didn't get along very well. This is basically the time as well when Patrick and Yvonne are talking that we learn that there's no one from Samuel's crew left at Las Encinas. Now, moving on, Patrick, Mencia, and Ari are all called to the principal's office. They do have a new principal, and they're coming in to collect their father's personal items. And of course, the principal tells them all the good things, like, they didn't have anything to do with it, and nothing's going to be held against them, and they just need to work hard, basically. We're going to skip to the locker room. This is a very popular place in Elite, and we're going to be introduced to a new student who is sort of reluctantly sitting on a bench in the locker room as we see some of the guys in the locker room heading into the showers. And eventually the new student heads in. We are going to see that Patrick and Yvonne are already in the showers, and the new student walks in with his swimming trunks still on. Considering Yvonne and Patrick's reaction, they seem to know who the student is, or are at least familiar with him. We do find out his name is Nico, and he is transgender. Very soon after that, we're going to go into one of the classrooms. All the students are talking before class. We actually get to see Nico walk in, and All the other students seem to know who he is and what's been going on with him, but Ari is completely oblivious to it all. She does not know that he is transgender, and she really looks stupid because after he hands her his identification card, the other students are basically going to have to sort of give her a nudge and tell her what was going on. We then head off to Isadora's massive mansion, where she is talking to Ari. It looks like the two are going to be pretty good friends this season. Isadora is upset. She's through taking prescription drugs. She's been on things like tranquilizers, and all that was leading back to her rape during last season. And she's really trying to, it seems, turn that page in the book and move on. And her and Ari are going to talk about going to a party at her new club. Now we're heading to the opening of the club, Club Isadora. And just to tell you, some of these things are probably going to be a little out of order, but that's okay. We're introduced to Sarah and Raul. She's a social media influencer who is being used by the school, and he is her boyfriend. We find out later on that she is actually getting a cut in tuition to help the school with its social media. We also find that Patrick's dad, Cruz, is also at the club, and he's pretty high on cocaine already. They're going to end up talking to Mencia and Raul. Raul seems to have a thing for Mencia, and Mencia seems to have a thing for Sarah. So we'll see how that goes long term. We find out that the three siblings actually left school in the spring, so they had to repeat this year. Sarah's going to end up leaving the party early and will later be followed home by Raul, who also brings Sarah. It seems pretty likely they're planning a hookup. Mencia is at the house. You have Raul shirtless. You have Sarah going to bed. She seems to be a little upset about things. So Mencia ends up leaving, and Raul and Sarah are going to be shown in bed together, and the scene cuts out with Sarah in handcuffs and Raul standing naked beside the bed. Patrick and Yvonne are having some trust issues. It's more on Patrick's side, and it is set off when Yvonne kisses Isadora as a friend. Isadora does have a bad reaction because of her feelings after the rape. She was really affected by this, and it brought up those memories. And she basically had a panic attack and had to head to the restroom. We run into Patrick's dad again. He's still using cocaine. Eventually, the restroom clears out, and Isadora's mom comes in, and basically she forces her to take some type of pill. I'm guessing it was some type of tranquilizer to help calm her down. Yvonne and Patrick continue to have issues, but Yvonne is also fighting with Cruz, and eventually he tells Cruz that he's going to go live with Patrick. Well, later on, we're going to come back, and while Yvonne is away, Cruz is going to come on to Patrick. He's high, he's drunk, and he is still having feelings for Patrick. He kisses Patrick, and right in the middle of the kiss, Yvonne walks in and catches them. Yvonne is going to leave angry. During all of this, Ari is making something of a play on Nico. She continues to be very transphobic while talking to him, and eventually he does call her out on it and ends up renting her a Uber to go home because she's drunk, although she hasn't been drinking that much. As Isadora heads home, she talks to her mom on the phone, and it's revealed that the rape charges are being dropped by the court because of lack of evidence. Her mom is not very supportive or sympathetic and doesn't actually seem to support Isadora, although she tells her that she does believe her. This is going to lead Isadora to look through the house and find drugs that may be hidden somewhere. Remember, she was trying to get off of the drugs earlier in the episode, and she's going to end up almost overdosing. She's going to be saved by two of the club workers or the house workers. One of them's name was Didak. She's going to come onto Didak, and he's going to end up insulting her over the rape, and she's going to end up having him fired because of it. Now, the last scene in this episode, we flash back to the school, and Yvonne is watching a stream because someone actually taped Yvonne's dad kissing Patrick, and he's sort of anguishing over that a little bit when Isadora's rapists walk through the door. in a very threatening manner. And there with them is Didac. He's apparently one of their friends. So that's what led to the entire scene at the house the night before. After some tense conversation, we're going to cut back to Yvonne laying bleeding on the street, and the car drives away. And Yvonne is in a big pool of blood. I guess Yvonne is only going to get 2 seasons because he definitely looks dead. All right, moving on. I just want to throw some ideas out there, give some thoughts on what I saw in this episode, and just overall, what's my reaction to this episode? First off, I am just going to mention and say I am a little surprised that they are keeping this Yvonne, Patrick, and Cruz sort of love triangle. I was really hoping it would disappear and they would send Cruz back to play soccer somewhere and we wouldn't have to worry about that anymore. But take that away. And with Yvonne and Patrick, I really thought it was interesting that they've given Patrick the trust issues in this, seeing that Yvonne is the one that was coming in being a little more, he was coming in not really knowing what his sexuality was. Everybody knows that Patrick was gay. That was that's just out there at school. So I just find it interesting that they decided to make Patrick the one that was a little bit jealous, was having some issues with Yvonne giving Isadora the friendly kiss and things like that. But then in the end, it was, of course, Patrick getting kissed by Cruz that ended up upsetting Yvonne. And that's because of that prior relationship there. So I thought this was very interesting how they did that and how they introduced us to that. I liked the two together. I thought their storyline last season was probably the strength of the season. And so we'll see where that goes. Of course, talking about Yvonne, I don't see any way he survived getting hit by that car. So we've got to look at another murder. And, I think we obviously have some people to look at here. Right at the top of the list, you have those guys that raped Isadora, or at least one of them. And of course, that's because Yvonne actually was there and he apparently testified for Isadora about what he remembered. You also have potentially Patrick. I don't know that makes a lot of sense, but things have been very interesting in this series, so it could be. Also, the other big contender right off is Cruz because of what's going on as well. And so I'm not really sure I can label anybody else as a contender for who is possibly murdering Yvonne, but I think those are your leading contenders right now. I also want to say I really like this new character of Nico. I think he's going to add some things to the show. One of the things I liked about the original episodes is that the character of Samuel actually came in and was sort of like this innocent character among all of these messed up people. And then, of course, by the end, he was actually somewhat messed up too. But, I think when you throw a character like Nico in there amongst all these people who have issues, I like seeing how everyone reacts. And so add to that he is a transgender character and see how people react to him. I mean, already Patrick and Yvonne have been very supportive. Pretty much the only person that hasn't been supportive is Ari, and she's just being weird about the whole thing. And so we'll have to see where that goes. The next situation I'm just going to mention is this whole thing with Isadora. And I'm not sure where they're going to go with it, but especially I want to see them actually do something to help her with the drug problem and the rape. In too many shows like this, we don't really ever get to see those dealt with very well. She needs to talk to some type of counselor, not just her friends. She needs a counselor. They need to show this. Okay. I think it has become very important in shows today that when something like this happens, they actually show what people should do. She should go see a counselor after all of this happened. And I hope they're going to do that. I think that's something I'm not going to jump on a bandwagon for saying we have to cover all of everything that's in society in TV shows. But I do think at some point we have responsibilities to be supportive of people. And I think we need to demand that Elite gets to the bottom of this for Isadora. Okay. And then also they need to deal with the drug problem, get her into some kind of type of rehab, or even if it's not rehab, she seemed to have been doing very good until the kiss. Dealing with the rape probably will help the drugs or the drug issue. So I hope we get some resolution to those matters in this season. Now, the final thing before I go on and grade this episode is I thought this was a better episode than most of last season. Elite does 8 episode seasons, and I would say last season there may have been 2 or 3 episodes that I literally totally enjoyed. And so with this one, I really like this episode. I like what they're setting up. The mystery, they've had very good mysteries of who's getting killed. This has become it has become almost a procedural. Who's going to get killed every season? Who's going to have sex every season? Who's going to be the new person every season? They do the same thing. And, I want to be able to care for these characters as well. And there are a few of them that I do. Like I said, I like this Nico character. Not as much for Raul and Sarah. We'll see what happens with them. Of the older characters, big fan of Patrick and Mencia. I would really like to see more of Mencia this season and get a little more into her character. Now, with all that being said, I'm going to give this episode a B. I thought it was a good first episode. It's better than most of last season, and we have some good things, I think, to work with, depending on how the writers have done. With that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. And just remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment below. And I'll see you next time on the Fandom Realm.